Hi, friends. It's Beth here with Aging Care Solutions, offering professional experienced guidance and personal caregiving experience to anyone really, families, spouses, caregivers, anybody who's looking after a family member or aging themselves who maybe is trying to glean some information about various things that they're going through. And one thing that I was have been exposed to my entire life, really, from the time I was just I wouldn't say a young child, because I didn't know my grandfather that had died prior to me being born. But over my lifetime, from the time I was about 17 years old, I slowly started losing family members. A grandparent died. And then when I was 22 years old, my brother took his own life, and it left a gaping wound. And I was left feeling angry and just really very sad for a very, very long time. And it wasn't too much longer after that, about 6 or 7 years later, that my dad died. So over the course of my life, I've lost a lot of different family members. My mother died in 2019, and I lost a best friend. So there's been just just life. Life itself is, there is birth and death, and it's just a natural part of life. But grief is something that really is profound, and it is often complex, especially for aging seniors, particularly because it often intersects with other life transitions, challenges that are common later in life. Losing a spouse, siblings, and I start to see that it's all over the board, really, when you think about lifelong friends, losing people. And it's really sad to think this, but like it seems like whenever somebody dies where I grew up in my hometown of Syracuse, um, I get somebody will text me or a link to an obituary for friends. Like a lot of my close friends are have been losing their parents because of our age group, and I'm in my early 60s, and it's that's when things start to happen, and you just realize to yourself too, oh, we're the next generation of folks who are going to be going. So to me, it's like I see that, especially dealing with families over the years, I just see that as seniors experience loss, whether again it's the death of a spouse or a lifelong friend, the way they process grief can deeply affect, not only their emotional, but their mental health and, of course, their physical health. I mean, when you think about it, it affects us all that way. I felt like I couldn't think, I couldn't sleep. I was agitated, but then I was exhausted. I mean, I just think about all these different, but yet when my mother died, I was almost relieved. I don't even think I cried. I was almost like happy she was home. I just felt like, thank God she's not in any danger anymore. She's not going to choke on something, or someone's not going to hurt her at the facility she was at. You just all these emotions just take over, and in a way I was like I said, I was relieved. But some of the key ways that grief impacts aging seniors, while we're still alive, while we're trying to be happy, while we're trying to live our lives, um, it can be very deep. It can be deep, lingering sadness. And when it culminates, with multiple losses over a short span, like friends, maybe you lost a spouse, and then like 3 years later, your best friend dies, and then your dog dies. I mean, this just happened to me. One of the church that I go to, the reverend there, she lost her mom, who it was expected that she was going to be passing. She had been put on hospice, but then, like, after her mother died, within a matter of just a few months, she lost both of her brothers. She's the only child left in her family. She does have an extension of family, but still, I mean, you can just see how it can build up, and that you could feel overwhelmed, and the emotional weight that this puts on anybody, really, can show up as like depression, just like chronic sorrow, and it's so justified when you think about it. And if you're by yourself, so say you live alone, and you've had all these losses, there must be tremendous loneliness and isolation. I remembered when my brother died, I had to go back to college. So my family lived in upstate New York, and I was going to school in Florida. And, I went back and I was in a fog. I was in a fog for probably a year. And I don't even know how I graduated. I have no idea. And talk about isolation. I went to class. I maybe saw a friend or two, but I moved into my own apartment. My roommate at the time moved home because we had another horrible tragedy while I was living there. Two friends of hers, I can't even say it. I just can't even say. They were coming to stay for spring break and they did not make it. It was just horrifying. But the isolation that I felt was almost, I needed it for healing, but it was prolonged, right? And I kind of feel like if someone lives at least in a building like a senior building, they are going to have more engagement and interaction with other people in their age group who are going to have gone through similar things. So if there isn't a support group there, I would highly encourage you to either talk to somebody at church about it or talk, like even other friends that you might have in the building that you live in, because the loneliness and isolation can really make your world shrink, and you really just don't want to be alone all the time. It'll bring you a sense of emptiness, a lack of purpose. So unresolved grief, can also cloud our emotional landscape and find it hard to engage, especially in things that you used to find joy in. Although, like maybe if you belong to a card club, or if you're doing something, like if you were doing a hobby or something that you were part of a club in, that might help because it could distract you. And I felt like that's really what I did a lot. I I don't even know why I did this, but I joined a gym way back then, even when I was like 23, and just doing the classes and just working out with my friend Janice. She was so helpful to me. And so was my friend Robin. I'm going to cry about this because I remember. And this grief, I'm telling you guys, it does stay with you. This was back in 1984, and I'm thinking about how I survived it. I don't even, I think I compartmentalized it and just kept moving because I probably didn't want to think about it. So it is complicated. Grief and mourning continues for many months, many, many years. And this type of grief often it can interfere with us having the ability to find meaning, maintain relationships, and really look forward to the future. Now, I didn't really feel that way. I just felt like nothing was ever going to be the same. Nothing's ever going to be the same. And it wasn't. It really wasn't. It wasn't. Did we live life? Did we continue on? Yes, we absolutely did. This is a stark difference. When that happened to my brother, this is how much that impacted me. But to watch my mother, who was, really such a very, very strong person, slip into dementia, and for 10 to 15 years have to manage her. When she passed, I was thankful. I was so happy that she was free. So that just tells you like the stark difference of grief. And did I grieve it? Yes, but I felt like I had already lost my mother. I was losing her slowly, the long goodbye. So that grief impacted me differently, just as your grief will for different family members, friends that you'll read about or hear about. But yeah, it does. And it also has a huge impact on your physical health. Sleep disturbances, it's going to happen. I think I was even having night terrors after my brother died. I was so far from home. And, I had a couple good friends that were neighbors of mine, good friends of mine, but I was working. I was trying to work and sort of pay my bills and everything. So I did have friends at work, but I didn't really know those people. I wasn't like what I would consider close, where I would share things with them. But I definitely know that it impacted me. It really did. It weakened. I I would get a cold at the drop of a hat, and I know other people. I've worked in this industry for 2 decades, so I would see a decline in people. I would see people get really skinny after they lost a spouse. Many times they were so little anyway. They were just tiny little peanuts. And I might go and visit them after their husband or their wife died and just see a really big change in them. And also it wasn't uncommon for couples that we were caring for, that we were bringing services in for, um, after a number of months that the second partner dies. So if they were married like 60 or 70 years with people living so much longer, they call it the broken heart syndrome. And I really think that there's something to that showing that increased risk of heart problems and weakened immune function, appetite loss, just sleep disturbances. There's so many other things that come along with that physical health. But it's a much slower recovery too when you're elderly. And you're just at an increase in vulnerability with other health related issues. So if you have children that are close by, and even if they're not, if you can go and stay with a loved one or a family who can just embrace you and cook for you and clean for you and pamper you. So many times I would go to people's houses after we had service, or I would see them at their loved one's funeral, and they would say, thank us so much for helping care for their loved one at the end. And we would get to meet the children, like the adult children who were coming in from Chicago and New York, and someone would fly up from Georgia or whatever to see their mom and dad. And just, I just think that's what it's about, is if you have anybody that can come and help you, take advantage of it. Try not to close them out. I know that social withdrawal is a really big thing. But in your grief, you're going to have mental fog, you're going to have memory issues, potentially confusion, especially right after you lose somebody. And there's going to be triggers too, things that normal routines or different things that you would normally do certain days of the week, especially trying to clean out a home. And oh God, I mean, my neighbors just went through this, and their daughter had to come home from college and help get their entire house. It's just a lot. It really is a lot. Um, and grief often disrupts our daily structure. Obviously, you know, you might anybody might stop engaging in certain things like favorite hobbies or neglecting self-care, just withdrawing, um, because it's just a natural thing to do. We're sad. It's like we want to just get away from everybody in the world, all of which can be critical, for anybody. But without support and encouragement, this isolation can make depression even worse, or it can diminish your quality of life even worse. So, um, I would definitely seek out support, either support groups at your local church, or even, if anybody can look for you and try to find like a grief group that's in your area, especially if they are particular to your specific. So if it's the loss of a spouse, a loss of a child, a friend of mine many years ago, I'm not going to cry on this one, but I'm going to try not to. They lost their daughter. She was 23 months old. It was absolutely devastating. I think she might have even been 18 months old. I have a really cute picture of her somewhere. She was just looked like a little angel. Um, but they went to counseling for parents who lost children from SIDS, and I would encourage you to, again, um, find other people that have gone through it, because they're going to know exactly how you're feeling. They're going to know, how to help you get back to breathing and eating and laughing again. I know that especially if it's something that's just new to you, just happened, it takes time. And just being kind to yourself. If the only thing that you can do is make a coffee in the morning and sit, and then the next day you walk out and sit on your front porch, any little thing, just remind yourself how proud you are of yourself, that you are being resilient, that you remember and have the capacity for joy because you live to love that person, right? And what a gift it was. Um, and that I always think too, like, what would that person want for us? Like, what would my dad have wanted for me? And he would never have wanted me to sit and become ill or to be unhappy or to not laugh again because he was gone. My dad had such a ruckus laugh, it used to embarrass me. But, when you think about someone that you really love, you wonder what it would be like to hear them again. So I'm sending you a huge hug. And I don't know why, but this really touched me, this topic today. Having support, talking openly about your loss, finding whatever source of meaning you can to find moments of joy, whether it's through family connections, praying, meditating, walking. I will tell you that when we talk about grief, it's not just about the grief of a lost loved one that dies. I grieved the end of my marriage, and it made me very ill because I felt like a failure, which couldn't have been further from the truth. It was absolutely out of my hands, everything that happened. So to me, I still felt this burden of this grief of not living what I thought I was supposed to be living. But I knew that I needed to heal, and I needed to heal my children. And together over the years, we have done that and remarkably brought a lot of joy and a lot of meaning and a lot of happiness back into our lives. So there's not just the death of a loved one or your pet. There's different types of grief for all kinds of things. It could be a job loss. It could be a breakup. It could be the loss of a close friendship that you valued tremendously. And you don't know why it ended, but it did. And you just find moments of knowing that it was possibly a growth opportunity. But maybe you just reserve those memories in your heart as something that was what you needed right then. So anyway, again, I am sending you a huge hug and lots of love as you navigate your life and your journey, your care journey with your family members, yourself, and your friends. And I'm here for you. If you have any questions or you need any support and you need help with that, you're welcome to put it in the messages. And I would be very happy to find any support groups in your area for you. And help you get the care that you need as far as support from, oh boy, I do look a little bit bad today. Anyway, sending lots of love, and I will see you at the next